Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sona Tumanyan. First, a brief report from the official news feed. After returning from his previous vacation, Prime Minister Pashinyan is on leave again starting today until August 15. Rumors are circulating that the Prime Minister is preparing an anti-Catholicos campaign, which incidentally he had also written about on social media. Freedom of speech has become a banner in our times, while in Azerbaijan they preach about freedom of the press, talking endlessly about an independent and unfettered media, about the freedom of the journalism. My colleague Diana Karapetyan shows the real side of all these: journalists in prison, punishments for publishing the truth in press publication. Let's listen.
The 100-year-old state of Azerbaijan is celebrating the 150th anniversary of the founding of the Ekinci newspaper with great fanfare, presenting it as the foundation of a free press. However, beneath this pathetic celebration, the reality is different. Free speech in Baku is not celebrated but punished. While the government applauds pompous statements about freedom of the press, dozens of journalists are spending their holiday in prison. Abzas Media, this name has become a red flag for the Azerbaijani authorities. Its employees, Alvi Asanli, Seven Chvagavkizi, Elnara Gasimova, and Nargis Absalamova, are in custody today, sentenced to up to 9 years in prison simply for exposing corruption and the government's illegalities. They, however, have no intention of staying silent. In an article published on Press Day, they directly address Ilham Aliyev, exposing with the harshest criticism how the regime that proclaims Karabakh is Azerbaijan is turning occupied Artsakh into a dead zone.
You divide it among a group of officials who say Karabakh is Azerbaijan, you give large plots of land to your companies, and you cram the people of Karabakh into buildings. No crops, no livestock, no work. They go to Bravo Market and beg for goods.
The imprisoned editor-in-chief of Meydan TV, Aynur Elganesh, wrote from the Kurdakhani detention center,
Azerbaijan is preparing for the 150th anniversary of the press, against the backdrop of the arrests of up to 30 journalists. Everyone knows we are here because we write the truth. We are being held hostage because we cover the illegal and corrupt activities of the authorities. We wrote about the corruption that leads to people drowning under bridges in the capital in broad daylight, the road collapses and caves in, and their bodies are found a few days later. We write about the corruption and illegalities, about the painful picture they have created, where our country is second in the world and first in Europe for cardiovascular diseases. Why do I always say Ilham Aliyev bears the responsibility? Because in the end, he is the one who makes the political decision.
And the editor-in-chief of the website Argument.az, Shamshad Agayev, gave a speech in the Court of Appeal on the day of the supposed freedom of the press.
Undoubtedly, this was a jointly coordinated policy of authoritarian strategic allies. Every time we say our arrest is a political order, government representatives and their pens for hire in the media deny it. And at the same time, on television and in authorized media outlets, they run a campaign against us in the atmosphere of 1937, demanding punishment. Is this not a political order?
Meanwhile, investigative journalist Behruz Samerov, mercilessly sentenced to 15 years in prison for supposedly spying for Armenia, has stopped speaking after a suicide attempt. His lawyer, Zubeda Sadikova, insists the court has never presented any evidence.
Samerov is merely a peace-loving scholar who opposes war. He has only spoken out publicly against the war.
Against this backdrop, speaking of press freedom in Azerbaijan is immoral, to say the least. The Baku dictatorship is now trying to turn the historical value of free speech, the press, into a political veil to conceal the fact that journalists in the country are not only unprotected, but criminalized and imprisoned, while advocates for peace are labeled as Armenian spies. Diana Karapetyan, ReOpen Media.
Meanwhile, fires are raging in occupied Artsakh. The fires that have broken out in Artsakh's eastern border zone threaten the existence of around 100 historical and cultural monuments, including the Tigranagerb Reserve and the Amaras Monastery complex. This is according to the Ministry of Culture of Artsakh. Posts on social media make it clear that a fire has already damaged the historic mulberry gardens of Norshen and has reached Nakhijavanik and Seydishen. The statement also specifically emphasizes that Azerbaijan is obliged to take measures in the seized territory to extinguish the fire and restore the damage. Let's return to the heated discussion of other regional developments. Lately, we have often heard statements and positions from various state officials from an increasingly active Iran. In this case, the issue is once again the emergence of a new player in the region, which Iran is trying to prevent. The spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ismaili Baghei, has stated that Tehran opposes the intervention of extra-regional forces in the processes of the South Caucasus. Let's listen to segment from Baghei's statement.
We are in favor of the swift signing of a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We support the development of transport links, provided they contribute to economic growth, do not affect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the states, and do not change the geopolitical landscape of the region.
Prioritizing the interests of regional security and development, the Iranian diplomat notes that the intervention of extra-regional players in the affairs of the South Caucasus would have a counterproductive effect. He assured that Iran remains in constant contact with both Armenia and Azerbaijan. And now, a direct word from Iran on the Zangezur corridor. The advisor on international affairs to Iran's supreme leader, Dr. Ali Akbar Velayati, has stated that the so-called Zangezur corridor project is a trap of encirclement for Iran and Russia. He is confident that the project is not actually aimed at regional integration, economic stability, or the well-being of the peoples. According to the advisor, the goal is the land blockade of Iran and Russia. Iran's response on this issue has been tangible. They have moved military forces to the borders and conducted military exercises demonstrating the red lines.
The era of passive policy is over. Iran is now pursuing a strategy of prevention and proactive measures. Behind this corridor stand the US, NATO, the Zionist regime, and pan-Turkist circles.
The international agenda is once again full of news. David Ganjoyan has studied the world map and reports on what's important in news. Due to a failure in the systems of the Russian airline Aeroflot, about 50 flights have been cancelled, including flights arriving from and departing to Yerevan. There is no official information, but there is speculation that this is all the result of a hacker attack. The Kremlin has called reports of a hacker attack on Aeroflot alarming. And on social media, the hackers have released a statement saying they will completely destroy the system. Now we can watch the report.
Fighting is taking place on the streets of Dmitrov in Donbass. Last night, Russian forces struck Kyiv with drones. 8 people were injured in an explosion at a multi-story residential building. According to Kyiv, Russia launched 324 drones and 7 missiles. Russian forces also targeted the Dnipropetrovsk and Kirovo-Krad regions. During the night, an air raid alert was declared throughout Ukraine due to the flight of Russian MiG-31s, which can carry Kinjal missiles. A fire broke out in Rostov following a Ukrainian strike. The Azerbaijani state company, SOCAR, will supply gas to Ukraine for the first time. The gas will be transported via the Trans-Balkan corridor along the Bulgaria-Romania-Ukraine route. Sergei Koretsky, the head of the company Naftogaz of Ukraine, stated that it is a small but strategically important step, both for energy security and the diversification of sources. The leaders of warring Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to meet in Malaysia to negotiate a ceasefire. In 4 days of border clashes, more than 30 people have been killed and 170,000 have been displaced. During the peak of the clashes, U.S. President Trump mediated, threatening to suspend trade agreements with both countries, after which the parties agreed to an immediate ceasefire. Donald Trump has announced that he hopes to sign a trade agreement with the European Union, but rated the probability of success as 50-50. At a meeting in Scotland with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Trump noted that the agreement will not include pharmaceutical products and tariffs will not fall below 15%. Von der Leyen also rated the possibility of the deal at 50-50, emphasizing that if successful, it would be the biggest deal for both sides. Trump had threatened to impose 30% tariffs on EU goods if an agreement is not signed by August 1st. Trump is surprised that Iran still intends to continue uranium enrichment. He recalled their strikes on nuclear facilities and promised to obstruct Tehran's plans. Trump, known for his frank vocabulary, called Iran's position stupid. Iran's Foreign Minister Arakchi stated that uranium enrichment is a matter of national pride and scientific achievement, and Iran will not renounce it. Details from the Erdogan-Macron phone call, the Office of the President of Turkey, reported that the situation in Gaza and developments in the region were discussed. Erdogan told French President Macron that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is worsening and the international community must take immediate measures to quickly resolve the crisis. Erdogan also welcomed France's intention to recognize Palestine. The word catastrophic no longer expresses the full tragedy of what is happening in Gaza. The footage you are seeing was filmed in recent days. People frantic from hunger storming a humanitarian aid truck, children fainting from malnutrition, people dead from lack of food. The United States, Jordan, and the UAE have airdropped humanitarian aid. And on the backdrop of this horror, Israel has announced the cessation of military operations in certain parts of Gaza and the creation of corridors for the delivery of humanitarian aid. Syria will hold parliamentary elections from September 15th to 20th, the first since the ousting of Bashar al-Assad, the head of the election commission has announced. 1/3 of the 210 seats in parliament will be appointed by interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa, while the others will be elected. The country is divided in its attitude towards the new authorities, especially after the interethnic violence that occurred in the Suwaida province, which threatens to undermine the fragile post-war transitional stability. In Greece, amid 42 degrees Celsius heat, there are major forest fires. The fire is spreading in the Peloponnese, as well as on the islands of Evia, Kythera, and Crete. Greece has appealed to the European Union, requesting 6 firefighting aircraft. In neighboring Turkey, a record heat of over 50 degrees Celsius has been recorded, and fires are continuing in several regions. More than 50,000 people have already been evacuated. In Pakistan, at least 279 people have died and 676 have been injured due to monsoon rains and resulting incidents. More than 1,500 buildings have collapsed or been damaged, and thousands of people have been forced to evacuate. Significant damage has been caused to livestock and agriculture. The eastern province of Punjab has suffered the greatest losses, 151 dead and 536 injured. As per meteorologists' forecasts, heavy torrential rains will continue in the coming days. David Genjoan, ReOpen Media.
David Genjoan updates and presents the uproar surrounding Palestine, tracing it back through its distant history. Independence for Palestine, support from France, the fiery commentary from the US and Israel. Let's watch the report.
On July 23rd, the Israeli parliament adopted a declaration to annex the West Bank. In response to the adoption of the resolution on annexation, France announced its readiness to recognize the state of Palestine. President Emmanuel Macron confirmed that France, as the first G7 country, will take this step in September. This decision was sharply condemned by Israel and the US. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, describing the situation in Gaza as catastrophic, also expressed support for the future recognition of a Palestinian state. However, unlike France, he considers establishing a ceasefire and consultations with allies a priority. The Arab-Israeli conflict, however, has much deeper roots.
First, let me say that the Arab-Israeli conflict is quite multi-layered and long-term, and it did not begin immediately with the creation of the State of Israel, that is, in 1948. It began at the start of the 20th century, when the disputed territories were under the British Mandate, which Britain had received as a result of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. During the British Mandate, Jewish enclaves were created in the Palestinian territories, and the influx of Jews into the region intensified, particularly in the 1930s, driven by fascist Germany's policies towards the Jews. Seeing that Great Britain, one could say, was unable to provide a proper solution to the problem, Great Britain referred the matter to the UN Security Council, where in 1947, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 181, which decided on the creation of two states, that is, the joint coexistence of two states, which was followed by the creation of the State of Israel in 1948.
The first Arab-Israeli war began in 1948 as a result of the Palestinian armed struggle, whereas during the British Mandate, Palestinians often sold their lands to Jews. In the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel captured the Gaza Strip, which was returned to the Palestinian National Authority in 1993 under the Oslo Accords. In 2005, Hamas won the elections in Gaza, starting a new phase in the Palestinian struggle. As a result of the conflict between Hamas and Palestine's ruling party, Fatah, founded by Yasser Arafat, Gaza pursued an almost separate policy.
Regarding Hamas, I would like to note that in many academic circles, there is a view that Hamas was created with the permission of the State of Israel itself by the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt through a charitable organization in the Gaza Strip. The question arises, why did Israel allow the creation of Hamas? One can reason as follows: to ensure its reason for existence in the region, that is, to maintain the ideology of struggle, a counterbalancing force is needed, and in the region, the Hamas movement itself could serve as such a counterbalancing force.
According to the Orientalists' conviction, the Israeli Prime Minister's desire to hold on to power hinders the achievement of peace.
It is very important not to overlook the fact that Israel's current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is facing very serious problems in maintaining his power. And during a state of war, as you know, there are no elections. And on a daily basis, we can witness demonstrations of many thousands in Israel where people demand the return of Israeli hostages. In my opinion, from Benjamin Netanyahu's point of view, the end of the conflict with the Palestinians with Hamas would create create very serious problems regarding his ability to stay in power.
According to experts, Donald Trump's pursuit of the Nobel Peace Prize could contribute to the resolution of the conflict.
The end of the conflict can only be linked to the assumption that if U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly declares his desire to win the Nobel Peace Prize, then to demonstrate his efforts, it is possible he will try to reach a certain agreement in this conflict. However, it is difficult to speak of its complete and final elimination because we see that, for example, the Oslo I and Oslo II Accords had a context of reconciliation which divided the Palestinian territories into different administrative jurisdictions. However, as we see, today we can observe that these agreements are not working because there is no clear will. And if there is a clear will, then everything can be resolved.
The deep roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Israeli leadership's efforts to retain power hinder the establishment of peace. Attempts at international recognition and reconciliation, despite certain initiatives, are failing due to the lack of will to achieve peace. David Genjoyan, Levin Voskanyan, ReOpen Media.
Green spaces are always a priority. In Yerevan, green spaces are being desertified, sometimes due to unauthorized construction, while the municipality has taken upon itself the mission of returning the lost green areas. Our pink city will breathe again, and the attention of the relevant authorities on this issue will be a guiding one. This topic is the focus of my colleague Narina Gugasian.
This is the park in front of the Yerevan Komitas State Conservatory, which was leased for a period of about 10 years to a certain business operator. However, due to some problems, not only is the lessee not implementing their business plan, but they are also not even maintaining the park. Over the last 15 to 20 years, similar areas have been sold or leased for many years to various business operators, some of whom do not use these territories, leaving the once green areas in a state of neglect.
There is City Council Decision 36N, there is City Council Decision 48N, but I can confidently say that almost none of the decisions have been upheld by the business operators. The decisions state how the operator must care for that area and bear responsibility for it.
Thus, about 80% of the capital city does not belong to the municipality. These areas are either private or leased out.
We see cycads and palms and mini cafes. In my opinion, they are not suitable for Yerevan's dendrofloristic composition.
We have lost not just public space, but we have also lost green spaces. Why? Because public spaces were primarily green to begin with. They were there to somewhat mitigate Yerevan's climate.
Armenia is characterized as a mountainous country with dry climatic conditions, located on the northern border of the subtropical zone, and Yerevan was a semi-desert area. Over the centuries, people have made these areas 80 to 90% green. Yerevan has 3 climatic zones.
We have lost the green zone of the Dalma Gardens and the Nork Forest, and Nork was precisely a forest, not just a park or a grove, it was a forest.
According to Inga Zarafian, the capital's courtyards were once much greener.
When that illegal spot infill construction began, it also hit the courtyards. They started building high-rise buildings inside the courtyards, which does not conform to any norms at all.
Henceforth, when carrying out such large-scale developments, if the owner has a certain plot of land on which they are building, they are not permitted to build on 40% of that land plot in order to create green zones.
There is a clear directive from the city authorities to the architectural and construction block that from now on, both before and after issuing a construction permit, the developer must submit a landscaping plan for 40% of that area, which was not done in the past. According to Armin Bigoyan, the director of the Landscaping and Environmental Protection SNCO, the green areas established by the new standard are not yet noticeable today. We will witness them in a few years.
What we see now are the permits and construction projects that were issued during Haik Marutian's time, and even before that.
We cannot bring those territories back. An alternative solution is needed. The alternative solution is that these new areas, which are taken for large complexes, must be provided with green spaces.
You cannot restore Yerevan to its former green appearance, even with piecemeal landscaping, because it is on a complex landscape and the communities have drastically different elevations, says the environmentalist.
With districts located at such different elevations, if you build something there, it can hardly provide for the entire area. It will at least be green.
According to Armin Begoyan, of the 75 to 80% of green spaces the capital had lost, they have managed to restore about 55%. Noreen Gukasian, ReOpen Media.
For more updates, follow us on YouTube, Telegram, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Daily news and full coverage are available on our official website. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Stay informed with ReNews.